Hello, everyone. It's me, Simply Latoria, and I'm here today to talk to Christians because most of my family and friends are Christians, and I label myself as a Christian for over 40 years. But today, I have to say that I am not a Christian, although I follow Yeshua, aka Jesus Christ. I do not celebrate Easter or Christmas, but I do celebrate the feast days of the Most High, which you can find in Leviticus chapter 23. I do not no longer eat pork chops, crispy bacon, seafood boils. They were all delicious, but I choose to honor the dietary laws, which you can find in Leviticus chapter 11. You know, they say my body, my choice. So I choose to follow the dietary laws of the Most High. You know, and I used to call myself a Christian until I found out who I really was, which now I know that I am Israel. So that's why I cannot label myself as a Christian, because once I found out that who I was, it changed everything. It changed how you read the Bible when you know who the Bible is talking about, which is your people, which are many of our ancestors. So, no, today I cannot call myself a Christian, but I often say my foundation have not changed. I still believe that you have to be saved through Yeshua, aka Jesus. The things that I was taught when I was younger, I still believe many of those things. What really changed is now I know that many of us that was in the transatlantic slave trade, are God's chosen people. And then that what changed my whole perspective on life and how I'm living my life right now. And that's why I say I want to talk to Christians, because, you know, I don't look at Christians and be like, oh, y'all shouldn't be doing that, because I was doing the same thing, and I truly was walking out what I believe was what was right. I went to church on Sundays. I'd be there for revivals. And then not just going to church, I actually was trying to walk out the lifestyle, the Christian, what they call the Christian lifestyle. I lived according to the Bible, what I was taught, and I did my best. So I don't look down on Christians and be like, oh, just because I found out who I was, and many of my friends and family may not know, or their eyes may not be open to that right now. You know, I still show them love, and we still communicate, and we still talk, because I was where they are right now. So, and I know how many of them think, you know, because I thought the same way, and I don't see nothing wrong with that, because their foundation is in Yeshua, which is very important. They may not have waken up to who they are yet, but the friends I know, many of my friends, they try to walk out the lifestyle. So I don't condemn them. I just continue living my life how I should, according to the knowledge that I have now. And hopefully they see and they say, you know what? I see Tori being a little different. You know, she don't do this anymore, or she don't celebrate these holidays anymore. She don't eat these certain foods anymore. And I just have to keep on living my life and just hope that they waking up and join this new walk with me. Because I want to say a lot of people don't understand, because a lot of the church says, oh, we're saved by grace, we're not under the law anymore. And even as when I was a Christian, I never truly believed that. I wrote a book back in 2007, and I was going through that book just to see like what I believe now. Did it really change? Because I didn't feel like it changed then. It's just like I have new knowledge. And I said, like, the law always been important, because without the law, how do we know how to walk out our lives? It's our guidance. We understand. A lot of Christians, I think, don't understand when they hear about the Hebrew walk. They don't understand. They think that we're saying we're saved by the law. We understand that we're saved by grace, and we're saved through Yeshua. However, the law governs us. So because of the law, you know, because we have to be governed by the law, because if there's no law, there is no sin, and then we're lawless. But we understand that we are saved through the blood of Yeshua. And that's what I want many Christians to understand that may not understand, because they say, why do you want to be in bondage? Why you want to be under the law? It's not bondage. I feel more freedom now than I ever felt within the church, because the church have their own rules, that rules and regulations that's not even in the Bible. They have certain things that you can't do or say, oh, you shouldn't do. That the Bible don't even say that we can't do it. But then the church want to take the little things that actually is in the Bible, like the dietary law, and to be like, oh, we don't have to do that anymore. But then you have us doing all this other stuff that's not even required. So I encourage and I challenge every Christian out there to study for yourself. You know, when I first heard that I may be that we, the people of the transatlantic trade, are the true Israelites, I didn't brush it off. It was nothing I never heard before. My brother brought it to me and I was like, okay, but I never heard of it before. But what I did, I'm a researcher. If something is brought to my attention, I'm going to research it out and see. And when I did my research, I found it to be true. I really did believe after I did my research, I said, we are the people. We are the people of the book. But who I was introduced through the Hebrew Walk, the group I was introduced through, it was some things I didn't believe that they believed. And I was like, well, I don't believe this is right. Because for me, I believe when I was a Christian that I was grafted in. So I also believe, now that I know that we are the people of the book, I still believe others can be grafted in. If they take on this covenant and take on the Hebrew beliefs, that they can be grafted in as well. So with certain things that in some Hebrew camps, they believe differently, just like your denominations. So you can't look at one thing or one Hebrew camp or one Hebrew group and say that's for the whole. And that's what I had to find out, because like I said, when I was first introduced, I said, well, you know what? They are right. We are the people of the book. But what they're talking about right here, I don't agree with. What they talk about right here, I don't agree with. So I had to keep researching. And I have to keep searching to see, are there people out there that believe what I believe, but understand that they are Israel? And I found people. It's many of people out here who believe in Yeshua, who believe how I believe. And basically, like I said, my foundation growing up in a Christian church, I don't see much of it changing because I came over to this Hebrew walk. Because my foundation was always in Yeshua. I always believed that salvation come through him. I still do believe that. And I always believed that the law was important. That was important. I didn't understand it to how I understand it now, because the church didn't teach it like that. But the law is very important. The law is not done away with. And anybody who reads the New Testament, it tells you that. You can look at Paul's writings and see that it say the law is not done away with. It say God forbid that it is. And you know, you will understand things a lot more. As I've been studying the Torah, which are the first 5 books of the Bible, and the rest of the Bible, because I believe Genesis through Revelations, I read it all and I study it all. But some of the things we find in the Gospels, we understand more. You will understand more if you really search and understand the Torah. Some of the things that happens in the New Testament is explained why it happened or why things was done if you knew the Torah. So it's very important to know. So anyway, I'm not going to keep going on. Like I say, I am not a Christian, and this message is for Christians. I challenge you, because once you hear what I'm saying, it's your responsibility to research it for yourself. If you never heard that we are God's chosen people, us brown people, if you never understood that or you never heard of that, now you're responsible for going to research it yourself. And don't get discouraged, because like I did, I didn't get discouraged, but how I found out and the group I found out through, it was a lot of things I didn't agree with. But I did understand. I came to that conclusion that we are the people, but it's a lot of things. So it kind of took me a little while longer, because now I'm looking like, okay, I got to find somebody who's still preaching what I believe is right and what the Bible says. I had to find that group of people. So, you know, I would just study at home. I find people, credible people on YouTube, on the internet. You know, it made me not have a desire to go to church anymore, because when I did go to church, I'm like, excuse me, do you know who we are? Why aren't you preaching this? You know, so it was a little different, because I've been going to church all my life. I pretty much, you know what was in the Bible. I heard all the messages and everything. Now, this was life changing to me. So I challenge all of you all who are Christians, because like I said, I was one for over 40 years. I labeled myself as one. Even when I found out who we were as a people, I still label myself as a Christian, because for me, a Christian was just a follower of Christ. You know, we're a follower of Christ, in which I still am. That haven't changed. I still am a follower of Christ, Yeshua. So that didn't change for me. But it was hard for me to step away from that label, because I know my family, I know my friends, and I know myself. I knew that we tried to live the lifestyle. We wasn't out here doing any crazy. And another thing, you know, when you study the history of Christianity, you will see some stuff like you can't deny it. When you study and look at history and read books and look at documentaries, Christianity was known to be a crude and false religion. It is a mixture of the true Hebrew religion and pagan religion. It's a mixture. And when it first came on the scene, it was called a false religion, because they was like, what is this? You mixing the Hebrew religion and the pagan religion and making this own religion. So that's why it is some truth. There's plenty of truth in Christianity, but it is a false religion. It's not the true religion. And people will argue with you, but I should say, study. If you want to ask questions and be sincere about it, I'm open for discussion. We can work this thing out together, but don't come and be like, oh, well, the Bible say Christians here and this and that. You got different translations and all this stuff. When you really search, first of all, when you really search the history of Christianity, you will find the truth. And if you really search of who the true people are of the Bible, who is God's chosen people, it's a lot of information out there. DNA and everything. It's not just he say, she say. It's documentary. It's documents. It's scientific evidence showing who the true people are. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of Jews who know who the true Israel is. So, again, I'm not going to keep going on. I'm simply Latoria, and I'll see you next time. Bye.